Our GBV-focused discussion now. Gender-based violence and femicide continue to be a widespread problem in this country. My next guest is from MOSAIC, an organization aiming to empower women and girl survivors of domestic violence and abuse. We'll discuss the different forms of abuse and how many women actually don't know that they are being abused. Head of Programs and Senior Social Worker at MOSAIC, Nandipha Ganya, joins us now. Thank you so much for your time, Nandipha, and good morning to you. I want to start here. How many women don't know that they are abused? And are there women actually that are not aware that what they're experiencing with either their partner or with any other type of perpetrator is a form of abuse?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I think in answering that question, let's start with what we do know in terms of the stats, which will help us understand what women are faced with in South Africa. So data from Stats SA tells us that on average, 1 in 5 women over the age of 18 have experienced physical violence by a partner. It also tells us that almost 50% of assaults against women were committed by someone that is known to them or that is close to them. This paints a picture for us that tells us that many women experience violence either at the hands of someone that they know, in their home, or in their relationships. Also, if we look at stats from SAPS from October to December 2020 versus October to December of 2021, there we can see that compared to men, women are more than 1.5% more likely to be raped. They are almost 600% more likely to be sexually assaulted, and they are almost 220% more likely to be victims of attempted murder. So here we can see that it's highly likely that many women are in relationships where they are being abused, but they are unaware of the abuse that they are going through.
Are those the only different forms of abuse that women have experienced, can experience, or are currently experiencing from those you've mentioned, namely rape, murder, or even assault, or are there more?
No, there are certainly more. Also, very important to point here is that there are certain groups within society that are more vulnerable to abuse or to gender-based violence than other groups. So, for example, you would have your woman with disabilities, your woman with a lower education background, your women who are, or people in general who are part of the LGBTQIA community, and people living with certain different kinds of disabilities, and the elderly as well as children.
Right.
Those are people that are more vulnerable to abuse. And then certainly there are more subtle or less commonly recognized forms of abuse, such as psychological abuse, where there are threats involved, where there's excessive jealousy, where there's control. Economic abuse is also another form that is less commonly recognized, whether it's preventing the woman from accessing employment opportunities, not paying child support, or really preventing them from having any access to money that will enable her to see to the needs of the family in whatever way or form. And then also social abuse is another form of abuse that is often overlooked, where either the survivor is isolated from their family, either by making the family feel unwelcome or by blaming the survivor or making the survivor believe that the perpetrator is not liked by the family, and in that way then isolating her from her family and creating that distance and that gap.
Nandipha, I want to get into the work that you do with women and children, or rather women and young girl survivors, right, of GBV and perhaps even femicide. What's the likelihood of survivors empowering themselves, successfully getting out of abusive relationships, seeking the help that they need, to the extent of even going to the SAPS and laying a charge or a complaint or opening up a case and seeing it through till the very end?
It is likely, but it is difficult in the society that we live in. Domestic violence, gender-based violence, intimate partner violence are still highly stigmatized in our society. And as a result, it is difficult for women to get out of abusive relationships for many reasons, such as fear. You know, they might be fearful that they're going to be losing maybe their source of support in terms of financial support for the family. They might be fearful that they won't be believed whether they go to SEPS or whether they go to a family member or to a friend. But they also might be fearful that they are going to lose their children and lose, you know, a sense or a part of themselves that they've invested in the relationship. So it's not as easy as just expecting a woman to up and leave an abusive relationship. It is a difficult process, and it is a process that requires some level of bravery and real determination. But it is very likely, and it is possible. We've seen it in the numbers that we serve of women and girls.
Well, I appreciate you giving us insights into this, Nandipha, because then it also speaks to the loved ones who have to almost practice patience and support, so not to rush and impose, while, of course, being understanding, but also just being the necessary support system that a survivor needs at that time. And I appreciate you speaking to me about this. Nandipha Ganya, Senior Social Worker from MOSAIC.